Hello folks, it is a Wednesday and that means we are in the workshop, and today I'm going to be talking about gear that I wish I had never bought. Now, before we get into this, I want to make it really clear that I'm not setting out to offend or upset anybody. If you're using some of the gear and equipment that I'm talking about in here, that's absolutely fine. All I'm saying is this stuff doesn't work for me. So let's get into it. First up, we have got a tool that has sparked controversy and debate since it was released, and that tool is the Bear Grylls survival knife made by Gerber. This is a truly awful piece of equipment. Let's have a look at the knife. The knife itself is completely unusable. One thing before we get into it, I will say I do like the handle. The handle is grippy because it's rubberized, it's comfortable, it's got a nice thumb grip here. The problem is we can't actually do anything with the knife because it's got a dual cutting edge on it. This renders the blade into what I would consider to be a glorified bread knife. We've got a serrated edge and we've got a smooth edge. That serrated edge is on the bit of the knife that we use for almost everything, and because it's serrated there, it means we can't do anything with it. We can't split wood, we can't carve, we can't make feather sticks with it, we can't even easily sharpen that in the field. It's completely stupid. The blade is actually pretty thick steel. I'm not sure what type of steel it is, but despite that thickness, I have seen many of these knives get broken, usually around the halfway mark, which leads me to believe that they are poor quality, mass-produced junk items. It isn't a full tang, even though it kind of looks like it should be and it has a feel of one. We can tell it's not full tang because we've got these two holes here through the handle. These are marketed as being able to turn the knife into a spear. Why on earth do I want to turn my knife into a spear? I just don't understand why I'd want to do that. The one redeeming feature of this is that it's got this ferro rod in it, which is actually really decent. I actually really like this. It throws pretty decent sparks. So if anything, just get yourself the ferro rod. This is a junk item. On to the next thing. Next up, we have got an item that seems to generate obsession in many people, with lots of people telling me I must have one of these in my kit. Believe me, I have never once gone out and thought, you know what, I need to have that thing with me. And that is a folding survival shovel. Now this is a pretty decent quality one. I've had it for quite a few years and it has seen a little bit of use. Occasionally, if I'm going out to do something really specific, you do need a shovel. But as a general bushcraft item or a survival item, this is completely unnecessary. To begin with, just before I construct it, one of the major issues with these is this thread here gets really quickly gunked up with grit and dirt because it's a shovel, which means that actually constructing this becomes incredibly difficult. I can't even get the thing to screw in properly. There we go. It takes forever to screw the thing in. Okay, so the idea is this folds out like so. Whoa! As you can tell, it's very, very clunky. So used like this, it can be used as a shovel for digging, or we can have it like this and it can be used as kind of a pick or a mattock. You know, there are instances where you might want a shovel in the outdoors, but largely, no, you don't need to have this as a standalone piece of equipment in your bag at all times. It is bulky, heavy, and unnecessary. One of the things that I see a lot of people doing is getting one that has a really sharp edge on this side, and they're like, yeah, I can use it as an axe. You don't just use an axe. Like, why would you do that? The problem with that is, as soon as you start digging with this, you're going to damage that edge, and it's no longer sharp to use. We have a serrated edge here. Not entirely sure why you would have that, but generally, unless you get a really good quality one, I've found that in particular the pick edge of this gets damaged and bent, and also this mechanism here gets really gunked up with dirt, so you kind of start losing that ability to fold it down pretty quickly, and they're clunky to begin with. I've trapped my fingers in these so many times. I used to always like have one with me, but they're just completely unnecessary. It's heavy, it's bulky. I'm not in the trenches, I'm not digging for gold, I'm out camping in the woods. I don't need a survival shovel. Our next item brings me to the axe wall, and the item we're going to look at next is this, the Cold Steel Trailhawk. I bought this many years ago because I was interested in why they were used so much throughout history, particularly on the American frontier and up in Canada with the fur trade and what have you, and I wanted to have a play around with it and see why they were so popular. This one was recommended to me by many people. I took it out a few times and rapidly realised that it just isn't functional as a tool. I feel like this was designed more around being a throwing axe or a kind of a weapon, but when it comes to actually using it as an axe, it's just not that good. I mean, it's pretty well made. The handle that it comes with is decent. The steel is good. It holds an edge very well. It's got a hardened hammer on the back of it, which has its purposes, which I quite like. That's, you know, useful for, you know, hammering stuff. The problem with this is actually the cutting edge. So if we look at the cutting edge here, it is not a very big, it's not a very deep cutting edge at all. If I hold my hand up to it, it's narrower than the palm of my hand. And I'm quite a small guy, so that is a really narrow edge. The problem with this is if you're doing something like limbing a tree, you've got to aim a really narrow blade at a really narrow branch, so you're constantly missing it. It's just not, it's not practical to use. If we compare it to something like a hatchet, so I've got a Gransfors Brook hatchet here. You know, it's your standard Gransfors Brook wildlife hatchet. If I put the two side by side, you can see that the Gransfors Brook hatchet is almost a third bigger, and that's a much smaller axe. Now, I've seen tomahawks that have a much deeper blade on them, and I think that's the type of thing that I'd like to go for in the future, almost more like a sort of Viking looking axe. This one is just not practical. A bigger problem is when we combine that shallow cutting edge with the fact that because it's a tomahawk, it's got a very narrow blade profile, it makes it difficult to do things like splitting wood. So we go, that one's the Cold Steel Trailhawk. Maybe I was wrong about it, maybe we'll get out and play around with that a little bit more, but still, of all the axes I've got, it is absolutely my least favourite and the least practical. Our last item is one that is loved and hated in equal measure, and it is this, my leather Australian bomber hat. I bought it to keep the rain and the sun off my head, and also because I was like, I'm going to look really cool on that. People think I'm a pro outdoorsman on YouTube if I wear it. And I put it on and realised very rapidly that I just do not suit this hat at all. But that aside, the biggest issue with this is I bought it mainly to keep the sun off my head, which it does a fantastic job of. But the problem is when you're wearing this, as comfortable as it is, it gets so hot underneath it that even when it's sunny, like it's keeping the sun off me, but every like couple of minutes I'm like taking it off and giving myself a waft, and then it goes back on and I'm like, I'm too hot and I'm sweating like crazy in it. So I ended up just not wearing it at all and started using like more of a tilly hat, which doesn't look as cool but is far more practical. Now it does fold. It is one of the folding sort of bomber hats. You can fold it and shove it into a pack, but it's also like it's quite bulky and it's quite heavy. It requires lots of maintenance. You need to oil it and put leather balm on it. So yeah, this is one of the items that I kind of wish I'd never bought, mainly because it was really expensive as well, and I just don't get the use out of it that I wish I could. When it's raining, if it's not been treated, it also gets really heavy and really cold. So it's really hot in the sun and then really cold in the rain. It's not a practical piece of equipment for the price you pay for it, which is a real shame because they're fantastic quality, they're very well made, but for the outdoors, just not practical at all. And I look kind of an idiot in it as well. And the sides are wonky. Although, saying I look an idiot, looks all right on me today. I think with the slightly shorter beard, it looks pretty good. But overall, yeah, it's an item that I wish I had never bought. Now, I know a lot of people absolutely love these things, and that's fair enough. But for me, it is just not the one. That was kind of a funny item to throw in at the end. So there you go, folks. 4 items that I wish I had never bought. Maybe the Cold Steel Trailhawk will redeem itself in the future. I'm going to take it out and play around with it a little bit more. Perhaps I jumped the gun a little bit with that, and perhaps it wasn't very good because of my experience at the time that I was using it. That being said, I definitely wouldn't buy it as a first axe. There are much better axes on the market at a similar price range that are going to be much better for the job. That, I think, just requires a lot of experience to use properly and effectively. The idea with this video was to kind of illustrate that we YouTubers don't just recommend everything that we get sent. All of the stuff that I've used in this video I have bought and then rapidly gone, this isn't very good. But the reason we tend not to do bad reviews of stuff is because we don't want to promote bad stuff, and it's not very professional, it doesn't look good. But the idea with this video was to kind of illustrate some of the mistakes that I've made in the past with buying equipment before I generated and acquired the experience that I've got now. And in the hopes that if you're new or you're looking at buying new tools and equipment, you might be able to use this video to have a look at some of the things that might make something not quite appropriate for the task you need it to do. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've got something out of it. And until next time, take care of yourselves, enjoy the indoors, and bye for now.